Plum, plum, plum. Now I am here as well. Welcome! Good morning everybody! I am not awake. Hi, welcome to the bad reading session of Takeshy. He's gonna do chapter 24 of Onto Banner Procedures. I mean, Boldores and Boomsticks. Yes, I am not awake. I just came home from work and I'm quite tired. But not as tired as so I cannot see out of my eyes. Luckily not like last time. And it seems my internet is safe. It seems everything should be fine. Let's see, everything is open, Boldores Boomsticks open. Ilya is here. I think we've got everything we need. I guess, what else do I need? Maybe some coffee. I still haven't even changed my clothes yet. But here we are to continue Boldores and Boomsticks. I don't know if we are gonna do the full chapter or not. But I am here as long as I can be, then I will probably sleep after that. Because I'm gonna work at night again after this. But we had a very big cliffhanger because the Team Rocket was stupid enough to try to steal some Grimm, who were contained in a not very containable cage, which doesn't have any material form, it is pure energy. And those ones that they have stolen, or at least trying to steal at this point, they did not steal it yet, are not recharged yet. So we can be sure that they might try to get out at one point. But it's Team Rocket we are talking about, so they are not really the brightest of the bunch, but they did have some hypno, and they did put to sleep. Was it Blake? I think it was Blake who they have put to sleep. But I guess that's it. Let's just continue from where we left off. Let's see, find something. Some not so happy music, because this is something that is not gonna fit for this team that we have right now. I have to check, can you hear me well, or if I'm just talking to myself? You should be able to hear me. Okay, I guess let's just continue from where we left off. This is gonna be chapter 24, Onto Banner Procedures of Boldores and Boomsticks. Let's just start. Sure, why not? Shade stared in horror as he watched Blake slump on the ground, out like light. He had drifted around the corner just in time to see her succumb to a hypno using his namesake move. He had taken too long to notice that his trainer had vanished, and though it only took a minute to track her down, it had been long enough to track enough for a Team Rocket operative to get the drop on her with the psychic type. Focus. he thought. Self-acclimation later, rescue now. Probably can't beat the Hypno face to face, and who knows what else they got. Need to get her back up. Shade glanced back, the way he came, and frowned as he realized that whatever problem had drawn the other huntresses, it was still ongoing. Things were noisy on the other end of the staging area, and that was especially convenient, now that he thought about it. Had the rocket set that up? His frown deepened as the rocket goon grabbed the unconscious girl by the wrist and pulled her up into a fireman's carry over his shoulders. What are you doing? Demanded one of the other men, one dressed in a dogwalker's jumpsuit. Shade was far enough away that he could barely hear him. You want to run into the challenge as soon as the hypnosis wears off? We bring her. Hey, keep her out till the jumpsuit is down, then ditch her. She's dangerous, Mac! Another man protested, one clutching his wrist gingerly. Did you see what she did with that ribbon sword thing? That bitch almost took my hands off. The first dog dropped her none too gently to the back of the truck, in the gap between the rearmost grim cage and the doors. Hypno, right in here. She twitches, use hypnosis again. He turned to the others with a scowl. You want her and her freaky friends chasing us down instead? We are bien senor, move it! Shade snarled as the criminals suddenly moved with purpose, a pair climbing into the truck's cab, and the rest dividing themselves between the two nondescript cars. In the time it would take to go and get the attention of the others, the thieves would be gone without a trace, along with Blake. When the truck started rolling 30 seconds later, they had another passenger. Shade was glad to be composed purely of gases, as he didn't have any trouble slipping through the minuscule gap between the doors. By freezing too near the top, he entered a few feet above Hypno's head, and the psychic was too occupied by his prisoner and the bow snarling at him from bare feet away to look up. The only source of light was the sickly green glow of the force fields. Shade was able to hide quite easily in the deep shadows about the grim's cage, as he considered his options. Okay, he mused silently. No idea how long we will be driving, or how long Blake will be out. Beating Hypno with a shadow ball point blank might be enough to drop him in one shot, but I might not be able to wake her before they stop and open the truck again. It's risky. Let's call that plan B. Need a plan A? I guess that will just be plan B, but after we get where we are going. And they aren't likely to check on her for a while. That will give me more time to try and get her up. Unless she wakes up on her own before the truck stops, then I will take my shot before the jerks put her under again. Yeah, there is one big problem with the hypnosis move, because it takes time to get its effect. The kitchen shifted slightly as the truck swung through a turn to a left. Can't keep track of where we are going from in here, but maybe there's another way to find out. Shade considered the Hypno. He didn't like his odds in a straight fight with an above psychic type, but perhaps if he was careful on his other skills, would open his opportunities that his martial powers wouldn't. Hypno crouched in the back of the truck, his back against the wall. He hated it. He hated it back here. The wolf monster thing in the cage was seriously making him nervous. The fact that there were another 5 cages in front of it only made things worse. Still, orders were orders, and there was a good reason for this on, so he obeyed without argument. Damn the human girl for making it necessary though. He could have been napping in his Pokeball, but no! He had to keep a nosy and dangerous prisoner asleep right next to the freakiest not a Pokemon he had ever seen in his life. Hey buddy! Hey! Psst! Hypno froze for an instant, then looked at the cage. The monster inside was looking straight at him, expectantly, instead of continually clawing at the walls of the cage. Where are we going? Yeah, that's... I see what Ghastly is doing. The golden Pokemon eye is violent. I thought you couldn't talk. Well, yeah, that's what the human thinks, but what do they know? The fearsome beast shifted in place, settling in a comfortable couch. So, what's the deal here? I mean, I'm glad to be away from the science we need, but what's Team Rocket's angle on this? Of course, the Grimm are gonna know about what Team Rocket is. You know about Team Rocket? Hey, yeah, I know about Team Rocket. Is this about recruitment? Cause I always figured you Pokemon had a sweet gig going in here. I would jump on that in a heartbeat. Hypno stared for a moment longer before schooling his features with an extreme effort of will. That's not my trainer's department, he said coolly, forcing his voice to say level. We are just a pickup and delivery squad. Deliver where? The Grimm asked, cocking his massive head like a curious dog. You never did tell me. Is it far? Cause the stupid cage is getting cramped. Hypno frowned. This was not what the briefing had told them to expect from the Grimm. The phrase mindless bloodtooth monsters had been thrown around several times, in fact. Shouldn't be long, he asked. It was even true, if misleading. Well, there was a pause, by the way, who continued to look at him expectantly, before shrugging its massive shoulders. Well, that's good. So, what's it like working for Team Rocket? What's the pay like? How's the house plan? Are goofy poems required, or...? The goofy poems. Family resolved that the bizarre conversation needed to end. Before too much was revealed, Hypno forced himself to focus on the still sleeping girl on the floor. I wouldn't know, he muttered. There was another pause. So, you gonna eat that? The monster asked, pointing at the girl. The second time stared at the werewolf in the undisguised disgust and horror. Shade regarded the Hypno carefully, estimating his chances of getting anything else out of the larger Pokemon. The joke had clammed up after the werewolf had asked about eating Blake, which had probably been a bad idea as far as getting information went, but the look on the psychic's face had been worth it. Fine, be that way, the illusionary Grimm grumbled. If you're going to act like that, I may as well get back into character. Shade manipulated the illusion to go back to clawing at the force field barrier, carefully lining its movements up with the real werewolf behind it, so that the mirage's dissolution was unnoticeable. Shade settled in his little hiding place atop the Grimm cage. He hadn't learned very much from messing with Hypno, but if they were stopping it soon, it looked like planning was viable. Assuming the psychic type was correct, Shade wouldn't have long to wait to put it into motion. I don't like this, Yang growled. She was pacing, trying to burn off a sudden surge of nervous energy. None of us too, Yang, Rice said, unable to keep her worry out of her own voice. She turned back to Stone. This can't be a coincidence. I should say not, the businessman agreed. The timing is too convenient. Okay, so it's been almost half an hour since anyone saw her and Shade. RWBY gnawed at her lip, trying to work the angles in her head. And we are missing some Grimm. Do we even know when they went missing? Pinot frowned, checking his copy of the manifest. The cages for all serial numbers. The cages all have serial numbers, and we have been checking them off as we move them. The missing units were some of the last removed from the ship's hoard, but they were never moved out to the initial staging area. That means that there is about an hour window which they were accounted for. And yes, last time anyone saw these bad numbers in that time frame. RWBY nodded thoughtfully, and blood into Ruth's pedals. She darted off to that end of the door, now skipping a pace above her head. The pair darted around the patch of concrete at random for a moment, before arcing around the wall of stacked shipping containers. The rest of the group heard her shout in alarm, and ran to... disappeared in a flash of pink light and reappeared at the corner. "Running takes too long," Whisper remarked. No one answered her because they were too busy staring at Ruby's discovery. A variant ballistic chain sight, lying discarded on the ground. "Camper Shroud," Ruby gasped. "A weapon?" Stone asked. "Oh dear." "Where's Blake then?" Young demanded, anger and worry clearly in her tone. "I think we should focus on the missing specimens," Pinion stated, then almost panicked at the angry glares leveled at him by Blake's teammates. I didn't mean it like that. I mean, she must be taken by the same people as the Grim, right? But the Grim was stolen from the initial staging area, meaning the cages haven't been recharged." "Yep, that's what I said." "6 Grim, randomly appearing in the middle of city," Sam muttered, horror in his eyes. "The amount of people they could hurt before a sufficiently strong trainer could stop them, not to mention Miss Pardon is likely the right there. And is alarmed, and we don't know what happened to her ghastly leader." "And nearly 100 more stay accounted for, wearing down their cages," Rice mused, gazing back at the cluster of trucks awaiting the order to move out. "We can leave them unattended, between possible further attempts at theft, and the Razorback's attempts to escape is too risky." "We are not leaving without Blake," Young snarled, eyes flashing red as she turned toward the Harris. "Of course not. I'm not saying we need to remember I'm saying we need to remember our other responsibilities too." Ruby closed her eyes for a long moment, ignoring her surroundings as her partner, her sister, and others bickered about priorities. Several eyes snapped open. "Alright, orders!" she said, her voice flat and uncompromising. Rice and Yang stiffened and quieted down, turning to listen to their leader. Ruby shifted Gamber's shroud and carefully tucked the weapon under her arm. "Rice, Young, you two are going with the trucks, right now." She raised her voice to override the blonde's immediate objection. "No, Young. Nox and I are the fastest. We will stay behind to look for Blake and the missing Grim. You and Lux will be ready for whatever the rest try. Letting them just sit here while we search is too risky. Rice, you and Whisper will back her up. When we find Blake, we will call. Have whichever truck you are on pull over, and Whisper can teleport back here and bring us to you. If we need help, she can bring you to us." "Yeah, I can do that," the Rats agreed from a place on Vice's shoulder. Yang scowled mightily, but Lux rested her hand on her shoulder and gave her a reassuring look. The bird tilted his head toward Ruby, clearly getting across his message. "Trust her." Yang sighed and reluctantly nodded, acknowledging that it was the best option. "Call us? How?" Rice asked. Without the CCTVs, our scores only have a few 100-foot range." Our radio," Stone answered. "Ishak has one, and we have a few spare handsets for the drivers. Miss Rose can take one of those. It has enough range to reach from our facility and beyond." "Right," Ruby said, her attitude lightening as the plan came together, and some of her normal optimism returning. "Team Ruby, let's move out!" Shade carefully wrapped the illusion around himself as the truck finally stopped for good. As soon as the engine was turned off, Hypno opened the rear door and hopped down to the concrete, obviously wanting to get a little distance between himself and the werewolf in the cage. The ghost type eased out of the vehicle and patched up of it, scanning his new surroundings. The truck had been driven all the way inside the decrepit warehouse, with windows only either boarded up or covered in layers of graffiti. Autobots, roll out! It's a joke that has never been done. I mean, I'm pretty sure that was basically inspired to the Team RWBY Let's Move Out as well. The short time suggested that it was probably still somewhere close to the docks. The huge bay doors that the truck has obviously entered through had already been slit shut and relocked by the thieves, who had been in the cars, who were now congregating at the back of the 18-wheeler. Hey, Trouble! Evidently the rest, as he replaced the trucker cab with his Team Rocket hat. He took even a long glance at the rearmost grim cage before shaking his head. Good! Alright, the hard part's done. All we need to do now is wait for the handoff, and we have made the easiest payday we have ever had. Ain't it for you to say? One of the Cybernettes muttered, rubbing his wrist meaningfully. Oh, walk it off, you rider. The raider waved off to complain before grinning at the others. Once the boat shows up, we drive to the truck aboard, and we get a big damn payoff for an hour's work. We are set. Except for one little detail, boss. Another jumpsuit in talk said. The girl. Boss waved that problem away as well. Throw at her. If those got it covered. She will stay in Dreamland until we're gone, and all she will be back able to do is report that Team Rocket were the culprits. Big deal. There was some grumbling among the grunts, but the boss put his foot down. Hell, if you want today's your share of the pay, by all means keep it up, or you can actually do your jobs. You three have done much. You need to get on the police scanner. You two need to prep the murder bag. Move. Discontented ranks. She thought that could be useful later, depending on how things went with his rescue attempt. He fired the thought away as the trucks moved out, crumbling under the brass as they did. The lead rocket simply shook his head in disgust, muttering something uncomplimentary about his minions under his breath, before turning back to his hypno. Almost done! Find somewhere to drop her and keep an eye on her till we're done, alright? Shouldn't be more than an hour, Stubbs. I've got to go keep an eye on those idiots to make sure they are actually on task. Hypno nodded, and just as that place recommend form, a faint aura of light surrounded her, and she lifted a few inches above the truck's floor, levitating on a cushion of psychokinetic power. With a sweep of bright yellow arm, the photos drifted over to a corner of the dingy warehouse, and was set on the ground, Hypno ambling after her, and helping up to sit on the edges of an old crate. Okay, good, I can work with this. Shade, still wrapped in his illusion of empty air and moving high enough to over everyone's heads to avoid notice, drifted over to the same corner. He found a position in the shadows next to the taller pile of crates, giving him a clear shot at the back of Hypno's head. Now that Shade was sufficiently hidden, he was able to drop the illusion concealing him. He would need all his concentration to accomplish the next part. Slowly, carefully, a pair of illusions took shape, back to back and paper thin. The first surrounded the corner where Blake, Hypno and Shade rested, and then projected exactly what was on the other side of it. The warehouse, the truck, and the handful of thieves, still in the main room. The second was what the first was intended to hide from the psychic type. An illusion of Hypno sitting on a crate and watching Blake focused outward. So it's basically a fake mirror. For the moment, the pair of mirages accurately portrayed what was on the other side, but that would change as soon as Shade was ready to charge up a shadow ball. Mac grumbled as he adjusted his flat cap again. Stupid thing was a size too large, and it kept falling over his eyes. Between that and how overheated his black uniform left him feeling, He couldn't fathom how Team Rocket's leadership had settled on the stupid outfit. A thud. Suddenly echoed through the warehouse, loud enough to make Harden's criminal jump. He looked around, but relaxed when he saw the cause, though it only brought a scowl on his face. He had not frozen in place atop his foot and seat, giving his trainer a sheepish look. A smaller box lay on the floor just in front of him upside down. A small plume of settling dust, making it clear how long it had been sitting there untouched. Well, gee, no, I don't think my heart quite stopped just then. You wanna drop another one? The Pokemon flinched at Max's sarcastic words. Demon simply rolled his eyes and put the incident out of his mind as he stalked off to make sure the super elites weren't settling off. Yeah, it was not. Well, it was kinda Hypno, but in a different way. Shade grinned as his surveyed job well done. Not only had the Moran fallen for his special hook, line and sinker, but he successfully one-shotted the overgrown lemon with a perfectly executed ambush. Not too shabby, if he said so himself. I feel a sneeze is coming up as well. Especially since Hypno had noticed the build-up of ghostly energies and whipped around just as Shade had launched, meaning he got to see the wide-eyed look on the stronger Pokemon's face for an instant before he took the Shadow Ball right in his oversized nose. Perfection! Making a mental note to thank Gengar once again for the lesson on how to use that move, Shade floated down to examine Blake more closely. She was breathing steadily and showed no sign of injury, so that was good. By the Spectre's best estimate, she had been out quietly for 20, maybe 30 minutes. She had likely wake up on her own soon, but she didn't want to wait, not when there were Grim and Team Rocket's dogs mixed in. So how to wake her up? This was one of those times that hands would have been really useful. Well, they do have some moves against sleeping Pokemon and sleeping people, right? In the shadowy darkness of the truck, the Silk Grim continued slashing at the barriers, holding them in place. The hard light gave off a steady green glow, but the expert would have noticed that the level of illumination was far less bright than it had been hours ago. Then again, the expert would have ignored the amount of light cells were giving off in favor of looking at another set of lights. Cluster of tiny LEDs built into each cage's control panel. Then the expert would have run for the hills. The lights had been even brighter green than the barriers when they were deployed. The previous night, they had been amber. For the most of the day, they had been red. And now, the red lights were flashing. Yeah, they are definitely running out of stamina. Eek! Blake shrieked as she sat bolt upright. One hand immediately went to her ear, one of her human ears, specifically as she stared at the incredulous at Shade, hovering before her with his tongue sticking out. Did you... wait. Did Shade actually evolve? Or is it in her dream? She darted forward into her personal space, and hardly touched her. Rick was not amused, but his serious expression was enough to make her comply. Did you seriously just lick me in the air? She demanded in a whisper. The phantom scrunched up his face, tongue still hanging out, and her expression as his trainer looked to mean, don't think I'm happy with it either, bleh! Frowning, Blake turned her focus to her surroundings. She could remember finding the agents of Team Rocket stealing Grim. Oh wait, no, it's her own hand went to her ear. Okay. She could remember finding the agents of Team Rocket stealing Grim. She remembered seeing a bright yellow Pokemon that caught himself Hypno. She remembered falling asleep. No point for guessing how, given the Pokemon's name. Hypno was unconscious on a crate nearby. There was a shimmering field curving around the corner of the building in an arc. Upon an insubstantial surface, Blake could see smoky images of Hypno, awake and aware, looking over her own unconscious form. They were behind one of Shade's illusions then. And on the other side, Blake actually growled, deep in her throat. Seeing the goons who had obviously kidnapped her, got her blood up in a hurry, sparking the normally reserved girl's anger to young levels. She reached over her shoulder and to teach his parents what it meant to imitate Blake Belladonna, and blinked as her hand closed on an empty air. She didn't have Gambler's shroud. Uh-oh. Shade, having backed off to a less intrusive distance, gave her an apologetic look. A cool illusion shimmered into view. In the middle was a smoky purple ball that always represented Shade himself. To the one side was a rough boxy shape with wheels, moving away from the middle with increasing speed. On the other, much further away was a cluster of stick figures engaged in battle with the bigger, spikier stick figures. And beneath the picture, Shade was her sword. Illusion Shade looked back and forth between the two groups and glanced down at the sword. With cartoony frown, it followed the truck and slipped through the rear doors like smoke. Blake frowned but nodded. She didn't have any way to bring the sword along. She certainly couldn't blame him for that. It still left her alarmed though. Okay, she said, keeping to a whisper. There is what, 7 of them? And they probably have plenty of Pokemon. Our odds aren't great. Shade frowned, frowning thoughtfully. She nodded, frowning thoughtfully. He found another cool illusion. One of a large ship and a truck driving up the ramp onto the deck. Then we don't have much time. Blake considered a few tugs visible from their hiding place. I know a few sleeper holes and other takedown methods, and not something great yet, but against people without an unlocked door, I can manage. Between that, your illusions and hypnosis, I think we can pick them off one by one. Shade grinned at her. The plan clearly had his approval. I wanna see Blake taking off one of their clothes and basically just getting into their team without them noticing. The followers gestured to one of the rockets standing at the side door, peering through the narrow gap to watch for threats. We'll start with him. That will give us a line of retreat. If something goes... Blake's screaming was interrupted as one of the dogs, now a sweat-soaked rocket jumpsuit and carrying the dog focus uniform he had worn over it, balled up in his arms, calling something from beside the truck. Hey! What's the big noise? His hands came immediately into the form of a massive set of claws, each one no less than a foot long, punching through the side of the truck. The metal parted like a cardboard as the bone blades raked downward, and bellowing roar made the force flex. Distant howls answered the call, and more claws, not quite as massive, slashed through the truck's walls. The criminal leader turned to the corner in panic. Hypno, quick, do something! The shade seemed to let the illusion drop, revealing Hypno's state. Blake's return to consciousness and his own presence. The criminal cursed to fit to turn. The air blew. Wow, that's a sentence I had never heard before. Cursed. The criminal cursed fit to turn. The air blew. They simply bellowed only the only order his men were likely to follow at that point. Run! The criminals fled, the boss pausing only long enough to return Hypno to his Pokeball as the Grim ripped their way from the vehicle. Drawn on by their captor's terror, 5 Bio moves leapt to the ground and pursued them outside. The last Grim dropped to the ground with enough force to make the concrete shatter. And also Major, 7 feet at the shoulder, on all fours, and no less than 50 feet tall, standing upright, watched the smaller Grim depart, apparently deciding it wasn't fast enough to keep up. Instead, the monster turned to look at Blake and Shade, and growled. "I think we need a new plan," Blake said calmly. RWBY stood atop some random warehouse near the docks, about a mile from where the Grim had been unloaded. Nox hovered at her side, the pair of them scanning the surroundings for any sign of either Blake or the missing Grim. They aspired their way outward from their starting point, covering square miles worth of ground in mere minutes with their incredible speed, but so far they have seen nothing. "You're getting worried, Nox," RWBY said, shifting Amber's shroud in her arms and carefully avoiding the sheet's cutting edge. "There's been no sign, and it's been a long time. Those cages must be about shut down, and we don't know if Blake or Shade are already hurt or what." Nox gave a reassuring smile, but he couldn't quite make it reach his eyes. Suddenly, he stiffened, ears twitching, and turning to focus on something. RWBY gave him a surprised look. "You hear something?" Rather than an answer, the bat rose up in the air, turning to stare down a long road lined on either side by decrepit warehouses and listening intently. RWBY drew crescent rows one-handed, keeping it in rifle form and deploying the scope. Following Nox's gaze, she swept her view across the road, looking for something out of place. After a few seconds, she was rewarded by the sight of several men in black jumpsuits barreling through the door of one of the dilapidated warehouses. Mouths open in screams she couldn't hear from this far away, but Nox clearly could. Seeing the red R on each man's chest, RWBY grinned in excitement. "Team Rocket! They've gotta be the ones who—" RWBY stopped, her eyes narrowed as through the scope, a barrel smashed through the human-sized door, scattering bricks out of the road. "Yeah, they are the ones who... Come on, Nox, let's go save the bad guys from their own stupid... and also Grim." Give me a second. Focus, camera, thank you. This isn't working, Blake groaned, perched atop the metal joist of the warehouse's rafters. Hovering at her side, Shade grumbled in agreement, even as he charged up another shadow ball. It wasn't likely to do any more damage than the last few. The Grim was too sturdy, and well padded for the concussion burst to inflict real injuries. But it was the only move he had that could have an effect at all. Nightshade wouldn't do anything to the Grim. He just tried to be. He had tried just to be sure, and they also hadn't reacted the slightest, and he certainly wasn't prepared to lick it. Ew. All he had accomplished so far to make the tremendous pair mad, and intent enough on them to stay in the warehouse for now. Every few minutes, though, it would get fed up with trying to catch such elusive and agile prey and start to leave, requiring drastic and risky measures to regain its attention. Illusions had been sufficient the first few times, but the other Grim had caught onto that trick particularly. As the umpteenth shadow ball in the last few minutes shaped itself before him, Shade found himself wishing that Blake had been the one to use a TM instead of Yang, even as he remembered the blonde girl's horrific reaction and felt horribly guilty for wishing that on his trainer. Still, at least she would have an actual method of defending herself from the Ursa. So far, she had only been able to contribute by getting close enough to provoke it and dodging away, and the handful of 2x4s and lengths of pipe, Blake had found discarded around the room had obviously proved no adequate replacement for Gumball Shroud. Shade pose. The shadow ball, full-sized and ready to fire, hovered before him. The purplish black energy gently pulsed, mimicking the beat of a heart. Did Blake need a TM to learn a move? She had used her semblance and dust, both of which relied on the same basic energy as shadow ball to function. The only thing she wasn't doing was shaping the aura into different forms and applying elemental types without dust. Gasly turned to look at his trainer, moving the contained energy in his attack with him. Maybe? Blake noticed his averting gaze. Something wrong? In lieu answering, Shade hastily crafted an image of him and held out a palm up, the fingers curled like it was holding something. Blake frowned, but did as he asked, holding out her hand, and she gasped in surprise as Shade maneuvered the shadow ball to rest just above her palm. I can feel it? She murmured, the awe in her voice making it clear she meant more than just simply a sense of touch. Slowly Shade backed away, leaving the ball resting in his trainer's hands. She stared at it, eyes wide staring into its depths, as the pulsing grew faster and more erratic, and thankfully she snapped out of it and tossed the explosive mass of energy away before it went off in her hand. The shadow ball dropped towards the Ursa Major, but only halfway before it destabilized and burst. The resulting explosion lopsided and less powerful than the attack would normally be. The Ursa bellowed up at them angrily, once again turning away to shuffle towards the nearest door. They gave Shade a piercing look. Do it again, and hurry! You can't hurry perfection, can you? A cluster of groaning, battered men in Team Rocket uniforms lay collapsed on the asphalt, black smoke of destroyed cream wafting on the breeze. RWBY stood over one of the criminals, Cassandra was resting idly over her shoulders. The look on her face was deceptively placid, but there was a hard glint in her silver eyes. At her side fluttered Nox, examining the tongue with a dismissive look that suggested that was no greater interest or importance than the dirt on RWBY's boots. The huntress looked the cook in the eye and spoke to him quietly and politely. I'll make this really easy for you. Where is Blake? The criminal stared at her wide-eyed, unable to articulate the response to his sheer terror. His gaze flicked off to the side, just past RWBY's shoulder, and his mouth fell upon the screen. Without looking away from the subject of her questioning, RWBY spun her side from its resting place, whirling in a wide arc around her. As it passed behind her back, there was a faint whisper of resistance, and a dual meaty thud, as the fifth and final barrel collapsed to the street at her side. Its head landing almost 2 seconds later. Do I need to repeat myself? She asked calmly, and then frowned as she realized the man had passed out, a damp stain appearing on his uniform. Now she got into a wing before chittering something to RWBY and turning on her sleeve. The girl nodded, turning back to look at the warehouse down the block the rockets and Grim had fled. Yeah, I guess it's pretty obvious where Blake must be. The wailing of approaching sirens caught RWBY's attention, and she flinched as she minded her other handful of crashed cars surrounding the impromptu battlefield. All of the drivers and passengers had managed to get out of their own and flee the group of panicking criminals and raging Grim under their own power, so RWBY had put them out of her mind for the moment, but there were likely to be consequences now. and if she ignored them to go look for Blake, the police would probably think she was fleeing the scene. Hoping that she would be able to explain things with the police quickly, Ruby turned towards the first arriving vehicle, her eyes widened as she recognized the uniformed woman at top of the missile Kaiser. Officer Jenny? Yeah, it's another one. Blake gracefully ducked under the Ursa Major's white strings, generating another copy to vault up and leap over its head even as she continued forward, slipping out of its reach. While the beast was distracted by the copy leaping past its face, she launched another shadow ball, aimed to pass through the copy and detonate against the Ursa's throat. The blast definitely got more of a reaction than previous efforts, but it still wasn't enough. Blake took a second to try and focus one more time, trying to gather and structure her aura like she had felt in Shade's hasty demonstration. She had tried this several times, but her constant need to stay one step ahead of a massive bloodthirsty monster was hindering her attempts. Energy built in her hand, giving off a purplish glow, but she just couldn't keep it collected there. It didn't seem to want to collect into a ball, and she had no idea how to make it feel like a ghostly aura. She had to be missing something. It doesn't need to be a ball, does it? With a somewhat wheezy roar, the Ursa recovered from the latest attack, more quickly than she had expected. Ignoring the phantasmal artillerist, the Grim lunged at Blake with surprising speed. Eyes widening, she dodged to the right and generated a copy to dodge left, a little slower. Oh, that was the plan. No copy formed. She hadn't switched mental gears fast enough, and the aura she had gathered for a semblance was focused into her hand. With the rest, she was using to try and recreate Shadow Ball. With a distraction, Blake's dodge was much narrower than she had preferred. That didn't really catch her attention though, as something felt different about the mass of energy in her hand, and even as she continued sprinting away from the pursuing Grim, she watched a short-lived and barely controlled beam of anti-light shoot from her hand. The burst was surrounded by a reddish-purple corona, and looked like it was made of long lines, interconnecting rings, spinning within the bounds of the beam, and grinding away at whatever it hit. Blake's first success was short-ranged and weak, only managing to cover a few boxes, but that was more than she had ever been able to accomplish so far. It also didn't look like anything like a shadow ball, but Blake wasn't about to be choosy. Scaling a tall stack of dry, rotted crates, Blake leapt back up to the rafters, rather than leap down to the other side. There was a plowed into and through the wall of boxes, and whipped around looking for her as they cascaded down around it. Shade rose to join Blake, grinning with pride at his trainer's success. She smiled back at him, glow building up around her hand once more. "Well," she said, staring at her newly acquired ability, "we now have more options." It had taken way too long to explain things to Officer Jenny, partly because it turned out she wasn't the woman they had met at Pokemon Nursery in Exeter, but instead was her identical twin cousin. However the heck that worked, but now Ruby and Nox were finally ready to go to find Blake, and this time with a police escort. Ruby charged through the door, Crescent Rose at ready, but screeched to a halt just a few paces in. She stared at the little dance taking place before her, utterly confused. The police following her wake were even more shocked. Blake was there alright, and so was Shade. They were locked in combat with an extra large Ursa Major, which was kinda expected since that was the only Grimm still unaccounted for. Confusion stemmed from the fact that Blake was shooting lasers from her hands. Blake dodged the Ursa and fired a beam from her palm into its face, only irritating it. She followed up with a shadow ball that stuck to the other side of the Ursa's head, knocking it sideways and drawing it an angry snarl. Blake took the opportunity to duck around behind the massive beast and leap onto its back, adroitly weaving through the long bone spikes and reaching the Grimm's shoulders. The monster, slightly cleverer than most of its kind, didn't try to throw her off. Instead, it slammed against the building's wall back first, trying to crush her with its bulk. The tactic obviously didn't work. Blake easily vaulted to Ursa's shoulder and swung down next to its massive head. Before the Grimm could snap or claw at her, she had to run an inch away from its eye and fired another beam. Blake dove clear as the other bellowed with mingled rage and pain, and she took his chance, landing a shot inside the Ursa's open mouth. The concussive burst returned whatever served the beast for brains, and it collapsed forward, flat on the ground. The building shook with the impact, and trickles of dust fell from the ceiling. But it still didn't dissipate. "Blake!" RWBY shouted, grabbing Gambo's shroud and hurling it towards its creator. Blake looked up just in time to catch her weapon, hands automatically taking it their proper positions and drawing the blade, and as she shot an astonished look at RWBY and her uniformed escorts. The Ursa rumbled, already starting to rise, thwack, and collapsed again, its head separated from its shoulders. Turning away from the Grimm, Blake took a deep breath and let it out slowly, before giving her team leader with a warm smile. "What kept you, slowpoke?" "Seriously?" Blake asked in a whisper, not wanting the police to overhear her as she continued securing the crime scene. "Identical twin cousins?" "I know, right?" RWBY hissed back. "She showed me a photo of her last family reunion, and there were like dozens of them. I couldn't tell any of them apart. Apparently they just weren't as quiet as they had hoped, because one officer altered his pass slightly to pass closer to them, and added his own thoughts in a low tone. Yeah, nobody really had an explanation for that. I was telling Jenny about it, and they will just protest that they are not identical at all, and point out some minor things like slightly different shade of hair, or birthmark being a few inches to one side or something, like it's the end of it." And the officer nodded slightly. "I bet you haven't visited more than one pilgrim center either. The joys are the exact same way. Ah, it's weird." Both men straightened up and hurried off to make themselves busy as Jenny approached, flipping through her notepad with a frown. "Alright, I have your statements, then the scene is secure. 7 suspects on their way to the station, eyewitness accounts, plenty. I think we have everything we need from you." Blake let out a slight sigh of relief, and RWBY beamed at her. "Great!" the redhead chirped. "We really need to catch up with our friends." "Right, at their own cost, facility," Jenny said, snapping at the notebook closed. "Personally, I would like to have words with Storm for bringing those things into my city, but he did file the appropriate paperwork for transporting dangerous specimens. Can't really blame him for just because some idiots thought they would steal some and neglected to properly secure them." "I still don't know what Democrats thought they were going to get out of this," Blake mused. "I mean, it should be obvious that Grimm aren't Pokemon and that you can train them." "I have an answer for that," Jenny said, her face twisting into a look of distaste. "But it just raises more questions. Democrat wasn't behind this." Wait, what? I mean, yeah, that makes more sense. "You mean those guys were acting solo?" RWBY asked. "Like doing it on the side?" "No, I mean, despite the uniforms, those men aren't rockets." Jenny answered. I recognize the leader from a few wanted reports. He's an independent contractor, or a mercenary. They use the less potential storm. A smile of dark amusement spread on Jenny's face. One of his crews confirmed it after we got him into Paddy Lagoon, and he was spilling everything in the hopes of cutting a deal. Apparently nobody told him he needed to have a lawyer to make a deal first, for that to work. Anyway, they were paid a bonus over and they were to hire Freef to wear copies of the team uniforms during the job, in the hopes of throwing off the trail if they were seen. Wait, why would they need to be paid more to do that? RWBY wondered. More importantly, who hired them? Blake asked, eyes narrowed. Anonymous middleman. They didn't have a clue who was signing the checks. Jenny said, it's a fine mess for our investigations to work through. They will start with the boat that was supposed to collect the truck. She set a wry grin at RWBY. And the bonus was to cover the escalations involved. The real Democrat hates it when people try to frame them for things, even as they revel in crimes they actually commit. Imitators stand to be haunted by Democrat enforcers, just as fiercely as by us. And believe me, they are far better when it's just than facing a full force of injustice, which generally a big stick with nails in it. Okay, RWBY said, trying to get the image out of her mind. Well, things are under control here. We would better let our teammates know that Blake's alright. Thanks, officer. Jenny stood at attention and saluted the pair. Thank you, Miss Rose and Miss Belladonna. A lot of people likely would have been hurt if not for the two of you today. Weiss lowered the handset radio from her ear and turned to face her teammate, shouting to be heard over the wind. Young, RWBY just called. She found Blake and the Air Force fine. She turned back to deal with the Bells holding themselves about the speed truck and blasted them with a carefully controlled bolts of flame. A few died, where they were. A few more were blown off the truck's roof to slam into the road at terminal speed, and one managed to snag the edge with one paw, dangling off to the side like a ragged banner. Miss Petter put it right next to the massive set of claws and stabbed the Bells' hand with Psycho Cut. It lost its grip and fell with a truncated howl that ended in a spat. I got one! The tiny Pokemon cheered, but she squealed in alarm as the rushing wind nearly swept her off. Whisper, be careful! Teleport back to me, I have discovered to give up for a reason. The distance away, Young heard voices shout and grin. Hey, my sister and my partner are alright, isn't that great? She asked her travel companion, but she only got more angry roaring as an answer. Young pouted before slamming the fist down on her impromptu mount's head. What do you know? The Manticore, stunned by the blow, fell from the air towards the first truck in the convoy. Lux waited atop it, and leapt up to meet the Grim's plummet just as Young warded off. He slammed a devastating roundhouse into the chimeric Grim's face, and sent it tumbling into a cluster of roadside trees with a snapped neck. Nice one, Paul! Young said, fist pumping the bird. And once again, we are past this attack. Whisper and go to get others. Luke stared happily at the news, and as his trainer's side turned to face a few new Grim remaining from the last attack on the convoy. So you took an awesome major unarmed? Way to go, partner! Yeah. It was pretty good, really good, but I really want to know how she was shooting lasers! How did you do it, Blake? Weiss rolled her eyes as she tugged on her partner's shoulder. Calm down, RWBY, she admonished. I'm interested as well, but you're almost hyperventilating. But lasers! Blake chuckled at RWBY's antics and raised her hand that glowed with strange energy. It's all thanks to Shade, but I have to explain later. Here comes Mr. Stone. The businessman looked wary as he approached down to Currently Industrial Hall of Darwin Corp. Darwin Corp testing facility, but he wore a smile of genuine relief as he reached them. Most better now, and Shade, of course. I can't express how happy I am to see you with us, and are unharmed. You are unharmed, right? Blake gave the kindly man a warm smile in return and nodded. We are both fine. In fact, with Shade's help, I learned something new. She lifted her hand with still emanating visible aura. He tried to show me how to use Shadow Ball to make up for my lack of weapon, but my attempts to emulate him resulted in something that isn't Shadow Ball. Fascinating. So murmured, being at her offer and arm. I'm not really an expert, but it looks rather like a build-up for a dark type attack. Perhaps you ended up with a dark burst instead? It's very similar to Shadow Ball. Well, we have facilities testing equipment here, so we can provide space for you to experiment without breaking anything. First though, let's make sure Pino has everything squared away. RWBY whined wordlessly for a second as Blake let her let it dissipate, but quickly collected herself. Good idea. We have made it this far. Let's not risk everything going wrong at the last second. So led the hunters team down the halls and up a flight of stairs until they reached a large control central overlooking a large empty room with multiple doors on each floor. Pino was there, huddled with a small cluster of technicians and scientists, all of them clutching tablet computers and printouts and clamoring to be heard first. Welcome back. I can already guess what you wanna say. The science team's leader was struggling to bring the order to commotion, but once they saw the boss and his expert enter the room, they immediately quieted. Problems, Pino? The scientist grimaced. Nothing dangerous, sir. The remaining specimens are all accounted for, and the cells are plugged into the facility's power grid, with full security measures active. Barring sabotage, we are as secure as we reasonably can be. Oh, good. Stone smiled at the science team, nodding cheerfully. His earlier awareness was well concealed before his upbeat demeanor, as he addressed his employees. Security and safety are priority one, always. So, with that established, what's everyone's rambling about? The cluster of heads immediately drove in a collective breath about resuming competing for attention, but were cut off as Pino shot them an irritated look. I knew it! Good question. Probably today. Hopefully today. If I can wake up early enough. The summary, sir, is that my team is concerned about the drastically shortened time frame we have to work in, and to be honest, am I. The Stone frowned at him. Well, it's not something we have any control over. What exactly are you concerned? Are you worried you won't have enough time to finish your tests? Pino ran a hand through his thinning hair and looked like he had bitten a lemon. Sir, I'm not even sure what test to run in the first place. Originally, the plan was that we would be able to take our time observing the crime and choose our course of action as the data came in. We'll be able to maximize the data we obtain by refining questions and keeping an eye out for new avenues of inquiry. But now, he threw his hands up helplessly. We are working mostly blind. We need to choose what tests to run without getting prior data. We might as well choose by throwing darts. Then do that. We won't have time to do more than a few before the crazy thing just drop dead and vanish. And if we choose wrong, and our tests don't return much data that any use, he slumped, the first sign of despair taking shape on his face. Then all of the rubber today has brought was for nothing. Well, I would definitely think that they have enough grim to do multiple different tests, not on the same game. I know the tests are much more accurate if you do it over and over, but it's better to do the tests before they disappear. Someone considered his employee's words for a moment, before reaching out and placing a hand on his shoulder, comfortingly. There is no such thing as useless information. We have only learned a lot, just from what we have seen so far. And whatever you find will only add to what we already have. He gave Pino a smile. Besides, I think I have an idea. Suddenly energized, Stone strode over to the windows, looking down to the massive chamber below. Who here has heard of the Mirage Pokemon incident? He heard. That's probably from... Oh, it's from... Wikipedia. The mastermind of the Mirage Pokemon. Let's see. What is this? Oh, it was a special episode that I have not seen. Oh, because it was Pokemon Go, okay. They probably... Oops. I closed my music. Good. Okay, it's fast to reopen it. Pino and his two scientists suddenly raised their hands. The rest looking as puzzled as Team RWBY. Not surprised, Stone said, seeing how few people had responded. It wasn't declared classified, but it was still kept quiet. Well, the short version is this. A while back, an absolute genius named Dr. Young created a computer system that created hard-like holograms of any Pokemon that care to name. Not only you could physically interact with the resulting projections, they could even make use of the moves. And it could even combine data files to create nearly unstoppable Pokemon. It had the potential to be the greatest battle simulator ever made. The problem was Dr. Young had a mathematical nut job. He put on a costume like a comic book supervillain, declared himself a Mirage Master, and left Professor Oak and some trainers of his acquaintance to acquire the password of Professor Oak's research database, all for the purpose of creating the powerful Pokemon, using it to take over the world. Stone paused and gave his audience a rueful grin as he saw the disbelief on their faces. I'm not even kidding. This actually happened. You could ask Professor Oak himself. Well, thankfully, he and his companions, especially a young man that I actually once met myself named Ash Ketchum, were able to put a stop to it. And we keep hearing that name, RWBY mumbled. Tracy and Gary has both mentioned him. I think Professor Oak said some of the Pokemon at his lab part of his team. Blake added. Young frowned thoughtfully. Actually, I think I've heard Casey mention somebody by that name too. And I know Riley said something about meeting someone with a lot of talent for aura use named Ash. Wise mused. Stone grinned at them. The kid really gets you around. Anyway, the madman went back to his burning castle. Yes, I said castle, to continue his work. And by the time the fire department and the police were able to search the place, there was no sign of him. But his machines, those were mostly still there, and quite a bit are reasonably intact. Stone grins grew broader. The whole thing was seized as evidence of a crime. And those in storage somewhere. As far as I know, nothing has ever been done with it since. But if I could pull some strings, get some of the technology's details released to us, he turned to Team RWBY. Speaking of sunglasses, how useful would you, your colleagues and your teachers back home find the Mirage Grim system? But a simulator that could replicate almost any combat conditions you care to name, with near perfect realism. My size widened. That would be phenomenal. I mean, that's basically what Vice's training is basically. She breathed, considering the implications. A way to expose students to rare and unusual crime. A way to try and perfect risky tactics in realistic conditions. Combined with the live fire missions we already do. Of course, to prevent students from getting complacent. It would even be useful here, RWBY cheered. Do you know how many times we have seen trainers get munched before they didn't just get that they are targets too? Something that like this could help to snap them out of thinking like that, thinking that way, without risking somebody getting hurt. It would be fun too, Young said. Imagine that, extra round of combat in combat tournaments, team racing to kill off all the cream in a way faster than the others. It would be like the best arcade ever. Excellent, Stone said happily. Obviously, this is going to be a long-term project. It's going to take a fair bit of politicking on my part just to get the text details released. And I can only imagine how much data it would take to render even a single move accurately. But that, he shouted, whipping around to point at Pino at his team, is something we can get started on now. Pino? Now you have the action to take your testing. Get every scrap of information you can about how the creatures of Grimm move in combat, how strong they are, and how much damage they can take. I want you to tell me how far a werewolf can bounce. I want you to tell me how much weight an monster cannot lift. I want you to tell me how the airspeed velocity of Unladen Nevermore. The businessman's energy was contagious, and Pino and his scientists sided up, their worries and gloom dissipating. Yes, sir! The lead had announced, then turned to start barking orders with a renewed vigor. Soon turned to Team RWBY, a gleam in his eyes. Ladies, might I prevail upon you to help to give Pino some fresh combat data? In response, he only got grins. And yes, I'm out of coffee. How far are we? We still have some time. But before we continue, let me just grab some milk. Just some milk. Down testing chamber, impromptu arena, Young looked up at the window, the control room. Hey Pino, she shouted, make sure you get my good side. There I asked, which side is your good side? Blake snarked, watching carefully as the cargo door on the far side of the room began to open. She briefly considered trying out her new dark burst move, but decided against it. I tested properly and tried to get stronger before using it in another combat situation. The outside, of course, Young snickered. Her smile turned into a leer as the other Bobotas clambered into the room, accompanied by a dozen lesser grim, the floor juttering slightly with the massive creature's every step. Also, dibs on that baby back over there. Only if you beat me there, sis. RWBY called. Cassandra's already raised. Wise on his side and shook her head before glancing at her Pokemon. Remember, Whisper, be careful and stay with me. Don't try going after any by yourself, okay? Aww, okay. Good, you will get your chance soon enough, I promise. The Razorback bellowed, and the Grim began to charge forward as a mass. The others and their Pokemon moved to meet them, and the clash began. All the while every camera and scanner to the facility had rolled on. In a massive office with a perfectly white walls, a perfectly white furniture, and even perfectly white floor, a woman with mostly white dress and exceptionally long blonde hair sat silently. A half dozen holographic scenes hovered in the air before her, each displaying a different news channel, each reporting on either the sudden appearance of a massive black-skinned creatures or the sudden appearance of several young ladies that seemed to be everywhere, fighting back against the bone-armored entities. Responses ranged from gratitude to disbelief, but the common thread was a lack of concern for the beings the girls were murdering. The woman controlled herself tightly as she watched the travesty unfolding before her, running her fingers through her pet's fur and allowing his presence to soothe her. Miss Lusamine, that sounds like it's from later series. Isn't it from Black 2, I think? No, it's from later. Well, this is the female trainer that we are dealing with right here. There is Miss Lusamine. Oh, it's from Pokemon Sun and Moon, okay. That's why I was not well versed about her. The speaker was a woman with carefully coiffed indigo hair piled atop her head, and a pink sweater under the white gold dress that was something of an unofficial uniform among the facility's leaders. What is it, Vic? Let's have the picture. Let's see what Vic looks like. There is Vic. Probably from the same series, yes, from Sun and Moon. Ah, the price you asked for, ma'am. Vic placed the manila folder on an employee's desk, keeping a fearful eye on the blonde woman's pet as she did so. The creature rumbled as it watched her, but settled as she backed out of its reach. Thank you, Vic. That will be all for now, Lusamine answered absently, not taking her eyes off the television screens. How disappointing, she thought, as her subordinate retreated with moderately undignified haste. Not even the assistant branch manager understood. Idly, she flipped open the folder with her free hand, allowing a few photographs and attached reports to spread out. Photographs of 4 disciplinary teenage girls who, if Lusamine's theory was correct, of all people on Earth, should have known better. So, it sounds like that Lusamine was the big bad evil in Sun and Moon. I might be wrong. I shared the summaries of each girl's known abilities and actions. She never stopped patting the werewolves at her side. Oh, the darling creature was stoic as the footage of his skin being butchered by these monsters continued to play on the screens. Lusamine could only hope that she could acquire his dignity and poise when she finally proved to Word how wonderful the Ultra Beasts truly were. Let's get some Luzamine right here. Oh, yeah, that sounds like that she's the big bad evil girl. "50 yards beyond Luzamine's feet, and just a bit to the left, her top scientist was ranting as she paced across his primal lab, no longer paying any mind to the news coming out of Yuan region from the monitor mounted to the wall. "Imbeciles!" he snarled, hurling a binder full of test results across the room. "Blunderers! Fools! What was the point of throwing so much money at the critics if they were going just to botch everything? Faber, the greatest mind in the Aether Foundation and the world beyond, was a tad miffed, to say the least." Yeah, that's definitely a evil scientist. "Mad scientist, though. How am I supposed to continue my studies without test subjects? Unless Luzamine doesn't supply me, how am I supposed to acquire more if my minions are all incompetent?" It was fortunate that Faber insisted on both soundproofing and physically isolating his lab with the structure of Aether Paradise, or else his sustained monologue would likely have gotten him some funny looks from his colleagues and subordinates in his lunch room the next day, and possibly a visit from the police. A few dozen miles away from Aether Paradise, in the loft of a small house turned lab on the beach of Melamela Island, a young girl with pale skin and long blonde hair sat with her knees pulled up to her chest and a blanket over her shoulders. A small purplish blue puffball of Pokemon hovered around her, babbling cheerfully to itself as it drifted. On the floor in front of her, an old and somewhat better television set played news broadcasts from distant Kanto, featuring statements from both the famous Professor Samuel Oak and the Indigo League champion Lance. They spoke of danger, yet the need to keep calm. But the girl wasn't interested in the warnings of celebrities. What was keeping her so entranced was the footage of horrible monsters from her darkest nightmares. She's not evil, but incredibly naive, and trusts to wrong people. Oh. And the familiar thrill of terror she felt whenever they were on screen, and the footage of 4 teenagers, or several years her senior, who fought the monsters without fear, and won. And for the first time in weeks, Lily felt the faint of stirrings of hope. From her design, I can assume that she is either the sister of Luzamine, daughter of Luzamine, or she is Luzamine. That's the 3 possibilities. I won't accept any other possibilities. But now, the 4 girls have stirred some bigger evil. Oh wait! I have a feeling that she was the one who was the one who ordered the Grim to be brought to her. Not Lily, Luzamine, I mean. Well, we are preparing some more. It's actually really great that they are not just gonna end it that, okay, you are just gonna get ready for the new advanced, what is it called? Sparring technology? Yeah, it's a sparring technology. A virtual training machine. No, they introduced a new enemy that has their eyes on the new girls. For some reason, she actually reminds us of the Queen as well. I don't know how she is in the games or in the series, because I have not watched or played Sun and Moon. The last one I played was Black 2, as I said. But there is a lot that is gonna come. Tomorrow at the same time we are gonna come back and continue. Hopefully, if my internet is right and I'm not asleep, because I will just cut back after the work, and that title is gonna be Dance Dance Absolution. It's not DDR, it's DDA. Funny how the next after that is Show Me Your Moves. Huh. But now I am okay. Mimikyu, please stop. I'm just gonna stop right here, and tomorrow at the same time we are gonna continue. I didn't think that there's gonna be rap in Mimikyu's music. Wow, that's really jazzy. I like it. But yeah, now I'm gonna go and sleep, because there are some people who are waiting for Beyblade reactions, and I have to sleep before I react anything. And I want to wake up in time to record something. In the meantime, let me just see if this is ready. Content. Let's see, copyright claim. It's not monetized. Okay, that's fine. So now I'm gonna release the actual unedited special of Rainbow Road Trip that I was editing. It just finished rendering when I came home. That's why I was a little bit late, because I had to stop it by force. But yeah, I'm gonna leave right now. Thank you for being here, and see you tomorrow.